Let's talk about risk. Let's talk about risk and discovering who you are, figuring out who you are. And let's talk about risk and the quality of the risks that you take. So we'll do a little story time first. All of us have our own relationship with risk, how we go about it, how we engage in it, what levels of risk and our thresholds for that are okay for us and not okay for other people. So hear me out here. I got a good argument around risk. But again, like I said, story time first. In my early 20s, kind of that late teens, early 20s, I found myself, it was a mid-morning on a Sunday, and I had been up all weekend. Stayed up all night Friday, stayed up and drove all night Saturday night, and wound up standing in a friend of mine's living room. And he and another friend of ours, so it was the three of us, decided it was a good idea to play Russian roulette. And the one friend was the primary guy kind of running this whole scene. And I don't remember if it was a 6-shooter or 5-shooter. I don't remember if it was a 38 or what it was, but the premise of Russian roulette is you put one in one of the cylinders and you spin it, and somebody puts it up to their head and pulls the trigger to see what happens. So I wanted to belong. I wanted to have people think that I was tough and fearless. And so the first guy went and pretty much just pulled the trigger. And the second guy went and he was shaking, and he kind of pulled the trigger, but he pulled his head away. Well, I didn't want to look like that. I didn't want to look like I was weak. And I wouldn't have said the word weak at that time. I would have used other words. But I wanted to appear strong, stable, certain about what I was doing. So, mind you, the odds are getting worse for me. But I put that up to my head and I pulled the trigger. And here I am today, so we know what happened. But I took a risk. I took a really, really big risk. I risked my life. And I risked my life for something that I wouldn't do today. I don't appear so much, I want to appear to be tough or strong or not weak or anything like that. And I don't know how you learn lessons, but for me, it was things like that helped me to learn and to teach me the value of my life and to learn who I am. And I believe one of the biggest things we can do in life and the risks that we can take is the risk of figuring out who we are and what we really want. What to think, what choices we make, how to act. And one of the things I'm a big proponent of is boundaries. My physical space is that you don't get to come past a specific point that I choose, and that if I let you into that, that there's a consent and conversation. And the next part of this is, you don't get to tell me how to feel. I don't get to tell you how to feel. I can tell you how I feel, if you let me. But the last part of this that I think is really important is you don't get to tell me what to believe in. And you don't get to tell me what philosophical filters or belongings, beliefs that I get to live my life through. You don't get to tell me what philosophical beliefs I get to live my life through. So I have this idea, and pretty sure of it, that most of us don't figure out what philosophical beliefs they run their life through because they're too afraid to go against what they've been taught. I think it's such a gigantic hazard and risk to disappoint the people that are in your life to explore that and to figure out what is actually true for you. So my life and what I really try to help people look at and figure out is, how do we go about updating what our system is that we see our life through? And how do we go about updating what we believe we have to do, or what we believe is required of us, or what we believe is expected of us and what isn't, and what we have to comply with and what we don't? Because I think that a lot of people, me too, from time to time, I pulled that trigger because I thought that was what was expected of me. I thought that was what was required of me in order to belong. So I wouldn't go about changing what I've done and try to rewrite that because of some shame or something like that. It's made me who I am. And I'm glad I am who I am. I'm happy with that for the most part. There are times that something grabs a hold of me and I try to go away from that. I try to get away from who I am. So I don't know about you, about how you're trying to rewrite your history, but I do know that I'm inviting you into looking at how you create your future and what rules or laws or things you choose to live your life through that you haven't looked at deeply enough to know that that's what you still want to do and what you don't. So I've got an opportunity for you here. Got some questions for you to consider. Is it time for some venturing away from what you were taught to just go far enough to find out things about yourself that you may not have previously allowed? And are you willing to risk your relationships that would have you stay the same and comply with old constructs that you've been living your life through? Because we do that in our relationships. We hold up different sides of this and the expectations. We're all going to continue to play our part. And the last question is, have you found the value of your life by putting your life at risk in some way? Have you ventured out onto the thin branches of the spectrum of that? Because I believe that the spectrum is that sometimes we don't risk enough. And sometimes we risk too much. We risk way too much. And the people who love us and care about us, we put them through things that sometimes maybe we wouldn't if we thought that stuff through and based our risk off of a different quality. But I think that there's plenty of people where you're not taking enough risk. You're not challenging and criticizing the lens you see life through.